Things just got worse and worse and worse as the night went on. Again, valiant effort down the stretch for the Bucks. Just too little, too late. Let's go down and let's see what Coach Fletch and the rest of the crew has to say. And as always, go Bulls. So let's head into the locker room right now and see what the guys have to say about that one. Wow. Where do the Buccaneers go from here? What an incredible atmosphere. What a good win for the Tampa Bay Lightning. They snapped a 7-game winning streak. How we feeling, Bucs Nation? It's time to party, baby. What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Recher podcast. Happy, what is it? It is June 3rd, 2025. I'm with you, Dolan. Such a weird sports empty feeling last night. Well, listen, I had UT on the brain at 6 o'clock. Unfortunately, they lost to Northwest Nazarene. They are not out of it yet, but they are playing again today against UT Tyler at 6 o'clock to try to keep their season alive. It's pretty wild, too, because that, well, you know, don't want to mess that up. Hold on. There we go. They're playing against UT Tyler today to try to keep their season alive. That's who, unfortunately, the ladies lost to. So two fantastic programs when it comes to the University of Tampa and UT Tyler. So we'll see if, our guys, the Spartans, can keep this, train rolling. I love you all. Thank you so much for tuning in. Dolan and Bart and DT and AC. What's up, Jake? College World Series tournament has been insane. You got that right, Adam. I tell you what, it's been a wild tournament too. You see crazy scores and like some of the things too with the coaches and what they're saying. We saw just a really negative comment in one of the games last night too. It's like, my God, man, like the highlight is on college baseball right now. And I think some of these coaches, and led by Sully there in Florida, just not really doing a great job. Not a huge fan of how these guys are carrying and conducting themselves. It's different, right? What's up, Sergio? Thanks for joining me on the program. Where are you watching the Recher podcast from today? Let me know. Put it there on the screen. And, of course, you guys can donate through some of the super chats that we've had. Lady Evil, David Terry, thank you guys so much. And everybody else that's contributed to the program, man, because I can't do this without you. Make sure you follow me on all social media platforms, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, TikTok. I love you all. And then like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. We're getting closer to 1,500, man. We're building. We are building. Pressure got to Sully. But I always say the true strength of anybody is not measured at your strongest, but at your weakest. And I don't like that. I don't like bullying. I don't like talking down to people. I mean, we all have moments of weakness. And listen, you just hope that it's something that can change, and hopefully he can learn from it and be better. I mean, obviously there was like a weak ass apology that got put out. I hate apologies, hate it. But it's kind of crazy after the whole no Sullivan thing happened. I had a couple of people reach out to me like, that's how he is. Doesn't really treat people great. You don't want to hear that, right? You don't necessarily want to hear that from people. It wasn't a good look at all. Dolan watching from Apollo. Where are you watching the Recher podcast? Feel free to put your comments there at the bottom of the screen. And, of course, I always invite you guys to get in on the conversation. If you go right there in the chat, and there it is right there, just click on that link in the chat, and you could join in on the conversation today. There is a lot of interaction that I'm asking for today. Some really interesting questions. Let's go through kind of the run of show here. We're going to start in a couple of minutes, and we are going to discuss Buccaneers, OTAs, voluntary OTAs, 2 days that the media is allowed out there. One was last Tuesday. I wasn't able to make it. I went out there today, rushed out there for about 35, 40 minutes. A lot of great things going on. We'll get into that here momentarily. 12:30. Benjamin Pierce is going to join us. The Lightning's beat writer does such a great job. Yanni Gord returning to the Tampa Bay area. What does Benny have to say about that and some of the other moves that have been made or are yet to be made? We'll chat with him at 12:30. 1 o'clock. I saw this yesterday, and we're going to have our guy Bailey joining us on the program tomorrow. Bailey Adams from Pewter Report. And the guys did such a fantastic job. Bailey Adams and Scott Reynolds interviewing Todd Bowles yesterday at 4 o'clock for damn near an hour. Don't watch it right now, obviously, because you're here with us. But later on, go back and watch it, and always support our friends at Pewter Report. He put something on Twitter last night that really piqued my interest. And he mentioned the Rays should sign Junior Caminero to a long-term deal. And that got the wheel spinning. Would that be a good idea? Is there some buyer beware because of what happened with Wander? And more on that here in a bit too. I don't know. I mean, I would look at it in certain, in a certain perspective, in a certain way, and be like, yeah, it's a great idea. Get him under contract. Do similar to what you did with Wander, but there's got to be some semblance of, you can't, right? Because of the uncertain future. We'll get into that a little bit later on. And then at 120, as of right now, the Buccaneers are the blank best team in the NFC. Where are they at? They're obviously not number one. I think you got to give that to the reigning defending Super Bowl champions. But they got to be in that next tier. And one of the reasons why I bring this up is because the Detroit Lions just had a big retirement. And one of their best players, a guy that doesn't get nearly enough credit, but he's a hell of a player, and Frank Ragnow. So we'll talk about that at 120. Of course, I always want to hear from you guys right here in the comment section, StreamYard. Boom, click on it, and you'll be good. Bart Hill, still working on the ridiculous 30,000 square foot mansion on Davis Island. Bart, you are a maniac, my friend. And the one and only, the queen of the J Recher podcast family, Lady Evil, watching from my music repair shop in Pinellas Park like every day. What do you repair there? Is it instruments? I don't know if I ever told you guys, but I was actually in band for many, many years in New York. I was in jazz bands. I played the trombone. And then senior year, I played the tuba for marching band because I got straight A's for the rest of the year. I volunteered. They were like, you don't have to volunteer. You're a senior. You don't have to do it. I did it anyway, and I got straight A's. And my band director turns out to be one of my really good friends, Jerry Ryan. And I was also in show choir my senior year. My senior year, I was like, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to do a little bit of everything. I joined show choir, doing the singing and the dancing. I was also in the kind of the boys group. We did some stuff there. It's really, really good stuff. If you ever have a chance, and I mentioned this yesterday, you ever have a chance to take a shot, do something a little bit different, do it, man. Why not? I did it for 1 year, and it was some great memories that I was able to have with people that like weren't really in my friend group. So it was, I hung out with the same people pretty much like we all do. I hang out with my sports guys, my teammates, and the guys that I grew up playing ball with. But to be able to have those moments with some people that I really didn't get to know until later on in my high school career, like that was a really, really cool thing. And Rob Brindamore coming out saying today that he was surprised when Coach Maurice asked him to not participate in their series-ending handshake line last week and disagreed that it should just be for the players. I'm going to post my video. I did it the other day, and I didn't post it yet, but I will, because I totally agree with Rob Brindamore. It's got to be, why is it just for the players? I don't understand. It's everybody. Like, everybody contributed. It's more than just the players. The coaches are there too. And I had one of the nice moments from earlier on in the postseason where Rob Brindamore got a chance to meet up with a guy like Brett Pesci, who was in Carolina for a long time, member of the New Jersey Devils. He comes back and, they celebrate after the win. Big hug, warm embrace. Like, I don't see anything wrong with that. We'll get to that a little bit later on. We'll talk about that more as the week goes on. And that's something to certainly ask Ben Pierce at 12:30. Rob Brindamore was a heck of a player. You're right, Benny. All right, let's talk about Buccaneers voluntary OTAs again. And I don't know if you guys saw this. I mean, obviously one of the big things everybody wants to know is like, what's the deal with Hassan Reddick? Like, is he there? No, he wasn't there again today. But again, not a big deal. Tristan Wirfs wasn't out there either. And I thought this tweet really said a lot. And this is from our pal Rick Stroud. And I actually just saw him on the way out because I had to leave and he was actually on his way in. But just read this tweet from Rick, and this tells you all you need to know. Okay. Bucs OTAs open to media this morning. They are voluntary. Don't expect to see Hassan Reddick, but we'll know shortly. The team isn't concerned one iota, and reports are that he's been working hard this offseason. It is a non-issue to the Bucs. I am with you. No doubt about it. I want to try to there was a video that I was sent yesterday. Was it Dave Velasquez? Of course, Dave Velasquez. You're on it, buddy. Look at this yesterday on the program. Okay, hold on. I want to make sure that you guys see this. People are worried about Hassan Reddick. What are you worried about Hassan Reddick for? Okay, boom. There we go. Hassan Reddick, great work day. There you go. He's out there. He's putting in the work. It'd be one thing if this guy wasn't doing anything. He's out there busting his ass, trying to make sure that he puts himself in a position to be successful for this team. If he just shows up, like, he's not going to get the long-term deal that he wants. So to not be prepared going into the season, not bust your ass going to, it's weird. It's not a Randy Gregory situation. Don't look at what you saw last year with Hassan Reddick with the Jets. That was a absolute dumpster fire. And it was the Jets thinking that they were going to be able to sign him to a long-term deal, doing something that Philadelphia couldn't. When it's weird. Don't hold that against Hassan Reddick. I think he'll be ready. He'll be there in a couple of weeks for minicamp when it's mandatory. Trust me. All right. Again, Lavonte David was kind of walking around today. Vita Vea, same thing. Tristan Wirfs wasn't even out there. So what are we even talking about, right? Some of the things that I saw that I really liked is that you get a guy like Baker Mayfield out there, and he's out there with his offensive linemen. All the starters were out there again, except a guy like Tristan Wirfs. And I want to play some of the stuff, and here I'll play the initial video for you guys out there. I'm going to play some of the videos that I took here at camp so you guys have it. Day 2. And if you guys look, I mean, you just bunch of offensive linemen out there. Baker wasn't wearing it. You see Kyle Trask out there, but Baker was there. You see guys like Logan Hall and Kalijah Cansey and Shiloh Sanders and Tyke Smith. Antoine Winfield Jr. was kind of walking around. Jamel Dean with the close cut as well. I mean, that's what you want. The vibes are so good right now with the Buccaneers. And it's weird because it is different than even the Brady years, because there was a direct change from the Jameis Winston tenure with the Buccaneers, and then you went to Tom Brady. And I know it was, during that 2020 year where there was the pandemic and there was no preseason and all that jazz, but there was just something even different than the next 2 years when we were allowed back around. It was loose, but there was more of like a strict attention and a focus. Like, we got to stay on this, and no balls dropped on the ground. Like, it was different, right? Now that we're a couple of years later, we see kind of the Baker Mayfield led Buccaneers, and we see a bunch of guys that are out there having a good time, a bunch of guys that are working hard, a lot of participation from, some of the veteran players. Like, I love that. This team is in such a good headspace right now. And I mentioned this a lot when we talk about sports, where it is so hard to win when you don't have your leadership core set in place, when you have guys that don't get along. Like, it's not the end all be all, but it's hard enough. And even if you have a team like the Buccaneers that do get along and everybody, like, great leadership, it doesn't mean you're going to win at the end of the day. But just to know that you don't have to worry about anything with the Bucs. That's what gives me positivity and optimism going into the season. I really like where this team is at. And again, if they're not getting the love and the admiration and the respect that they're getting from, some of these so-called pundits and these experts around the country, like, who cares? Who cares? If you can, not saying that you need that chip on your shoulder, you need that motivation, you need that us against the world mentality, but I don't think it hurts. I don't even think it helps. And if you want to see Baker working with some of the offensive linemen, here is some of the video we got from before. You see Baker with Graham Barton and Ben Bredesen, Cody Mauck, and Luke Gedeke, you missed last week. He was around, but he wasn't practicing. He's back out there. And the only offensive lineman not out there is Tristan Wirfs. So Charlie Heck out there working with the guys. He spent a lot of time with the group in the offseason. That's good stuff. The other thing is there's been a lot of talk about the cornerback position. And when you look at the draft picks of Jacob Parrish and Benjamin Morrison, people are wondering, what does that mean for the future of a guy like Jamel Dean? And I use the same kind of logic that I've had about Rachaad White. You can never have enough good players. And when it comes to the National Football League, injuries are going to happen. You never know when it's going to happen. You don't know who it's going to happen to. So to be so quick to get rid of people and to trade people away. Like, it's not a smart thing. You don't want these guys all like, all right, throwing them into the fire right there, throw them into the deep end. Let's get Parrish starting on one side. Let's start Marson on the other side. What, Zion, maybe he goes to slow. No, like, take it easy. Take it easy with these guys. And for all the talk about when you look at a guy like Jamel Dean, and I know one of my good buddies, not a big Jamel Dean fan. It's not for lack of effort. And that's the one thing that I even said about a guy like Joe Tryon-Shoyinka. And Ian and I kind of go back and forth about JTS, and always be weary when people say, well, he looks like he's a great athlete. It looks great. Ugh. You know, you're not saying that he's a good player, but it wasn't for lack of effort. I remember time after time going out there and seeing JTS being one of the first guys out there working on his own. Sometimes guys just don't get it, and they're not able to maximize the athletic ability that they have. And maybe it's the coaching staff, maybe it's the environment. Like, there's a lot of variables that go into it. The one thing that you can control is your work ethic. And something like that, when it comes to a guy like Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, or even here with Jamel Dean, I mean, you are who you are when it comes to like being a ball hawk or a guy that sacks the quarterback. It doesn't mean you're not putting in effort. And you look at Jamel Dean here, like, this is a guy who says there's no sitting on the job, right? But he's out there, fresh cut, working on his hands, trying to find any way possible to be a guy that's a little bit more of a ball hawk. Now, can you really become a guy like that? I don't know. I think you just either have a knack for something like that or you don't. I don't know why. I put this video out of Shep, Bucky, J-Mac, Yaya, Zion, and Antoine, and for some reason it added the picture of Coach Steve Coleman. That's so funny. You just never know with social media. It's surprising more things like that don't happen, where you post some stuff that wasn't supposed to be there. Here's some of the video from earlier today as well with Sterling Shepard. That's another guy, right? And people wondering about Trey Palmer and his future with the team. There used to be Antoine Winfield Jr. out there doing some one-on-one work. This defense, for all the talk about the guys that have been added, Antoine Winfield Jr. and his ability to take the football away is a big deal. And you see right there as I freeze it, Shepard, Bucky, J-Mac, Yaya's working in the back there, Zion McCollum. You need guys like Antoine Winfield Jr. to be able to step up. As much as the team as a whole needs to get better rushing the passer and taking the football away, like Antoine Winfield Jr., that's part of the reason why he's here. It's part of the reason why you pay that man. It's part of the reason why, you know, he's on track to possibly being a Hall of Famer himself. But he's got to step up. You need a little bit more consistency out of 31. If he does that and you combine that with the adjustments that they made, I mean, God bless. Watch out for the Bucs. Sergio, Tristan had been on the team for a while, but now he has proven himself in front of his teammates and he's a captain. Reddick is not. I'm a little concerned. Sergio, I hear you, but there's certain things, and I've learned this, you know, covering sports over the years, is for issues like that, the people who it matters the most, whether they're worried or concerned, it's the team. And if they're not concerned, we can't necessarily be concerned for them. If they don't think it's a big deal, hey, fine, whatever. You could have your own opinion, but at the end of the day, it's really up to them. And you hear this around the National Football League where guys don't show up and it's like, I don't know where this guy is. I don't know where this. And there's just, you can tell there's an uneasy feeling. I don't get that at all with the Buccaneers. Not at all. I think they're cool doing his own thing. And like Dolan says, if he doesn't show up for mandatory minicamp, yes, which I've everything that I've heard, that shouldn't be an issue at all. They expect him to be there. Ren, what's up, buddy? Winfield needs a bounce back year. He certainly does. He certainly does. And I can't wait to see what they end up doing with this starting 11 on defense. Who is going to be, like, we know the kind of the starters with Cansey and Vea and guys like that, and Hassan Reddick and Yaya Diaby. We start looking at this secondary. And I really hope, and we know how Coach Todd Bowles is. He is a guy that is going to go with his veterans. They're going to get the first opportunity to fail. And midway through the year, you start analyzing your team. All right, who gives us the best chance to win? What are we going to do? And for all the talk about Todd Bowles, and I know there's still people out there that aren't sold and people out there that aren't Todd Bowles guys, and they don't think he's the guy to lead the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to the promised land to win another Super Bowl. One thing that you have to be completely honest with yourself, even if you are one of those people, is that he is a guy that is adapted and become more open-minded. And I said this to somebody yesterday, you're never too old to learn. And it doesn't matter who you are. I said it to KJ Sales when he was on the show. You can learn from anybody, from anything. You can learn what to do. You can learn what not to do. You can learn from younger people, older people. You got to keep an open mind. And I go back to the Giants when they won the first of their last 2 Super Bowls with Tom Coughlin. And I don't know if you guys know that story, but I think they were 0-2. They were playing in Washington, and he's like following Michael Strahan, and he's trying to get his attention, and he's just like barking at him and barking at him and barking at him. And he's like, do you hear me? Or something to that effect. Like, do you get me? Do you hear me? And then Michael Strahan turns around and goes, you're losing your team. Do you hear me? And Tom Coughlin he was in his 60s at the time. He was like, oh, maybe I am. And then he goes into the office on Monday, and he puts together a leadership council. A couple of guys on offense, a couple of guys on defense, a couple of guys on special teams. And he realized that there needed to be some type of conduit between the coaching staff, specifically himself, and the players, and especially, having the veterans as the guys that are kind of the work between. And that changed everything. I mean, you went from a guy that was going to flame out, you're probably going to lose your job, to a guy that 2 Super Bowl victories, he's probably going to be a Hall of Famer, right? And you can bring in certain personalities that maybe mesh or don't mesh. And it worked out, right? Because he had an open mind, and he learned that I got to really start thinking outside the box a little bit here. And I think Todd Bowles is a guy that's done exactly that. Todd Bowles has looked at this entire situation going, all right, I've had my guys with me. I've had certain coaches that I think, you know what, this is going to be the way that we operate. And then over time, he's realized, like, I got to change. I have to look outside the box. I got to start bringing in different people. I mean, you just look at who he's been able to hire since Byron Leftwich left. I mean, you brought in Dave Canales, you bring in Liam Cohen. Now you're bringing in a guy like Josh Grizzard. And, I know he was already here with the team last year, but you're talking about guys that he doesn't even really know. It's not from the Todd Bowles coaching tree. And the last 2 guys, Canales pretty good in year 1. Obviously, they didn't run the football as much as we would like. And then last year with Liam Cohen, overwhelmingly positive. And that wasn't necessarily a Todd Bowles guy. So I like that. And I think going forward, when you're thinking about this team, that's why I feel good, because they're not stubborn. You have to be able to stick to some type of foundation and some basic fundamentals when it comes to this is my coaching style. But you got to be able to budge, and you'll also have to be able to look at the players that you have and realize that as you get older, the players keep getting younger. So you can't have a disconnect there. The best coaches are the best communicators, and we see that pretty much in every sport. And you see, as these guys get older, they're still able to tap in to what makes them a phenomenal coach. And it just starts with communication and the trust that you have with these players. You're going to have less and less in common with these guys. And look, when I think about that, the first guy that comes to mind is Pete Carroll. He's got that youthful exuberance. And I can't wait to see what impact he has with the Raiders this year after an incredible career in Seattle. But his communication skills are through the roof. You've seen it. The DK Metcalf pre-draft visit where he had no shirt on and Pete Carroll takes his shirt off. He's one of a kind. Whether you agree or disagree with certain coaches, their communication has to be top-notch. You go to Andy Reid, head coach of the Kansas City Chiefs. He allows those guys on Wednesdays to come to practice and say, hey, you have any new plays that you guys are working on? Let's see if it works. Sometimes he throws them in there, and a lot of times when he throws them in there, it leads to a touchdown. We mentioned Todd Bowles. Look at the other two coaches that we have with our teams here. When you look at Kevin Cash, the mild-mannered, not get too high, not get too low. When you have a team like the Rays where you play a lot of your guys, you have to be a master communicator. Hey, you may not be starting today. This is the reason why. Hey, I moved you from the 3-hole down to the 6-hole. Here's why. Guys getting called up, guys getting sent down. Like Kevin Cash is the guy that has to handle all of that. John Cooper, right? And this is something, and we had this conversation with Brian Engblom a couple of months ago about him being, whether he's an X and O's guy or a gambler or kind of like a psychologist. And Brian said, like, his X's and O game has gotten way better since he first got into the league. But his strength will always be kind of that psychologist, that how can I talk to my players? How can I disseminate the information that I'm getting from everybody and put them in a position where they're going to succeed? It's not a surprise. Not a surprise. Look at Paul Maurice, right? Well, I may agree or disagree with some of the thoughts that he has on handshake lines. Incredible communicator. And that's been one of my favorite parts of the NHL the last couple of years, is watching some of those videos of Paul Maurice talking to his players on the bench. So the communication skills of a manager, of a head coach, paramount to their success. And for all the people that may not like the demeanor of somebody like a Todd Bowles, the communication with the players is not something that's lacking. Look at the team. The team that's gone through the last 2 years, struggles and losing streaks in the middle of the season. Nobody's jumping ship. Nobody's talking crap. You're not hearing murmurs. There's not things being leaked of people that are unhappy. No, it happens. But it's because they trust Todd Bowles and he communicates with his team. Look at that type of aspect of coaching when you're trying to analyze whether a coach is a good coach or a bad coach, and see how it trickles down, because it does. It certainly does, especially when teams aren't playing well. Ren, Bowles has been talking about matching up corners versus matchups. For example, Tyke may play safety week 1, then play slot week 2. Parrish, a third-round pick, will play about 50-50 inside versus outside. Yeah, one thing that we have learned, though, and this isn't just with Todd Bowles, it's with other coaches around the NFL, this early before the season, when you have voluntary OTAs and mandatory minicamps, and there's so many times that dude is standing in front of a microphone before the season starts. And there are going to be players that he kind of throws out there. And whether it's to throw the media off the scent, whether it's to throw the opponents off of the scent, we'll see it on game day, and then we'll have a better idea of like how he's going to deploy his players. Because I think one thing that Todd Bowles wanted to have, no matter what, is versatility on the defense this year. Guys that can play multiple spots. And you can't have a situation like you've had in years past where 1 or 2 injuries in the secondary and then you're screwed. Then you're starting to play a bunch of guys that are essentially special teams players. Then when you have them out there and you're playing divisional games and it's not working out, like, that's not good. Right? There you go, Ren. Last season, Bowles talking about JT as a joker back. It never happened, right? But it got you thinking, and you remember. Our guy, John Lynch, borrowed time. His roster's falling apart, paying the wrong players. Now a mid-round draft pick for Huff. I don't know. You're hoping, if you're San Francisco, you get Huff with Robert Saleh. That's when he had his most success a couple of years ago. A lot of teams do that in every sport. Hey, this player played great for this coach. Maybe now that the coach is somewhere else, you bring him in and you're able to accentuate his strengths, kind of discover some of the magic that you had a couple of years ago. Sometimes it works. I think more often than not, it doesn't work. But I'm with you, and that's why I asked that question. We're going to talk about it a little bit later in the 1 o'clock hour. The Buccaneers are the blank best team in the NFC. I don't look at the San Francisco 49ers as a better team than the Buccaneers. Sorry, I don't. I think they're in big trouble going forward. Brock Purdy's getting all that money. Deebo Samuel isn't there. Christian McCaffrey's getting older. Trent Williams is getting older. Fred Warner's getting older. You need that injection of youth. You really do. And if you don't, then you're going to get into a situation like we see kind of in the NHL, where you go from first to a team that's in the middle of the pack, like we saw last year with San Francisco, to a team that's going to be drafted in the top 5. All right, let's talk some Lightning hockey, and we'll do it with our pal Benjamin Pierce. Look at this guy over there at Amalie Arena. What's going on, partner? How are you?
I'm good. It's weird seeing the arena this dark, but we're already ready for next season. I can tell you that much. I wish we were still writing, but you know what? It's been great. So it's good to have a little bit of a reset and already planning big things for year two. So
got that right, buddy. And you did a fantastic job with the Bolts for sure, doing a lot of great write-ups and just being around. And it is weird too, right? Knowing that it's like a month has gone by, they're still playing hockey, and unfortunately the Lightning aren't in there. It seems like forever ago. But the big news yesterday, Ben, Yanni Gourde re-signing with the team. First off, before we get into kind of the crux of the deal, were you surprised that he came back? And were you surprised that it happened this early during, it's not even the offseason technically. I mean, I guess it is for the Lightning, but it's not the NHL offseason. What were your initial thoughts of the deal?
I wasn't surprised, mostly because when this trade happened, a lot of the conversation was, I mean, he was giddy. Like he was just kind of like, you could tell it meant a lot to him. And he was really good in his time here. He's not a guy that's going to score 30 goals a year, but I thought he fit really, really well. He's a guy that some of the younger guys like Gage Gonsalves and Connor Geekie both said, like, we latched onto him. Like, this is a guy that's started as an undrafted player and kind of had to work his way up to the AHL, to the NHL, to go from maybe that extra body to the fourth line, the third line, the second. Like, this guy's made every kind of ascension you could possibly want. And for those young guys that are still figuring out how that all works, I think he was a big crux. And, the guys loved having him back. I don't know if the guy has bad days. It seems like every time you talk to him, he's laughing or smiling with somebody. I don't think it was surprising to know that they wanted to get him re-signed, and that was something that Julian mentioned even at the trade deadline check-in. He said, like, let's see how this season goes, but I think we made this trade with the hope that both players will be here next season, and they're going to be here next season, and for Yanni, it'll be a lot longer than that. So it's good for him. You'll love to see a guy like that get rewarded for coming out as an undrafted player and doing everything he's accomplished, and hoping for more of those cup wins here in the next 6 seasons.
Yeah, no doubt about it. What about the length? Were you surprised about the 6-year deal? I mean, obviously that's one of the hesitations I have. I mean, you're giving a guy a 6-year deal. He's going to be 39. This is a guy that plays a tough game. But the term, I think like the AAV is good, and you convert some of that, into the signing bonus, which I think is going to help. And it's, the cap is going to go up. Were you surprised that it was a 6-year deal? Because as a lot of people have alluded to, Julian tried to do this with Killorn, tried to do this with Stamkos, and Yanni's the first guy to kind of sign on. And we know it's not just the team, right? It's, the wife and the kids and living in the Tampa Bay area. And I'm sure he enjoyed his time in Seattle. But, when you tell your wife and kids you're going back to live by the beach, I think they're going to be pretty happy about that.
Well, first off, let me say I do not play in the NHL. And coming from Wisconsin, I can say this much. My wife was stoked to find out that we were moving to Tampa Bay. So
right.
Obviously, for sure, not on the same level as Yanni Gourde, but it does make a difference. And I think for them, though, more importantly, it's the comfort. Like Yanni didn't want to leave, right? And that's the thing, is the expansion draft came and he was Seattle's selection. Fantastic selection. The guy wore a letter for the Seattle Kraken. And this is the kind of guy, though, that you need to win games. Right. And this is the kind of player, I think, you look at the 6 years and you can say maybe that seems a little long for a 33-year-old player, but by stretching this contract out to 6 years, you get that cap hit down to $2.33 million. And listen, the cap is going up, and from all projections that all the insiders say, whoever you will, are putting out there, they think this is going to keep going up. In 4 years, 4 years, $2.33 million isn't going to probably be that far away from the league minimum contract. And when you've got a guy like Yanni Gourde, who spent his entire career playing kind of that jackknife, do whatever you need, the Swiss Army knife role, for that kind of money, you love it. And I think what a lot of people don't realize is if you lose Yanni Gourde this summer in free agency, what do you think is one of Julian Brisebois and the Tampa Bay Lightning's top priorities this offseason immediately after? It's, hey, we've got to go out and find a player who can kill penalties, who can slot into the center position if we need him, can possibly play top 6 minutes, We need a solid bottom 6 player who can play at the NHL level on day 1 of training camp. AKA, we need Yanni Gourde.
Right.
And I get it. He's 33. There might be some fans like, God, that seems like a long time for a 33-year-old. What do you think the Toronto Maple Leafs would be willing to offer Yanni Gourde on a 4 or 5 year contract?
Yeah.
Seriously.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
You think that? I would guess it's pretty close to double $2.33 million. I think it's a fantastic contract for the Lightning. I think it's the perfect situation for Gourde. Like you said, his family loves it here. He loves it here. There's that comfort. It just made sense. And I think over a 6-year game, like, this isn't a guy who's scoring 30 goals a year because he's dancing through the middle and, you know, has the speed to beat these guys. He's playing the true, honest way. And yes, he likes the physical side of it. I believe since being acquired, he was second on the team in hits. So he definitely doesn't shy away from the physical side. But at the same time, sometimes that's good because it's not a guy who, oh my gosh, what happens if/when he loses his foot speed? He finds ways to contribute away from just, I'm going to score 30 goals a year. And that's really, really important down the lineup, especially as you get older. I think it's a great deal.
Yeah, and I look at his game too. I remember years ago, he went like, and you got to look this up one day, because he went like 50-something games without a goal. And he got so close so many different times. And I remember when he scored, he was just so happy. But nobody was like complaining that he didn't score because he did so many other things. And he had a ton of assists and he was killing penalties. And it was just so rare because it wasn't one of those things. And unfortunately, the last couple of years, whether it was a, you know, Atkinson or Connor Sheary, like some of those guys that are maybe a little bit older and they don't score, and people are like, it's been this many games. Like, nobody did that with Yanni because he played so well outside of being able to score. But ideally, I think the other part of my concern, and maybe concern's too strong of a word, but I think his role needs to be defined going forward. Because as much as I love Yanni, like, he started the playoffs in the first line, right? That's, if you're a playoff team, like, I don't know if that's really accentuating his strength. He's a bottom 6 guy. He's a guy that's killing penalties. He's just not a goal scorer. Like, that's not saying anything bad about the guy. He's never really been like that, right? But I look at this team, Ben, and if you and I look at this, you know, look at the forwards, like, we know it's, you know, Kucherov, Point, and Gensel, Cirelli, Hagel, and let's just put, you know, Bjorkstrand in there, right? And then you have Paul, Geekie, and Gonsalves. I think you and I both agree that they're going to be, you know, maybe not on the same line, but at least be with the club next year. I don't see how Connor Geekie doesn't break, you know, camp with the club. That's 9 forwards right there. So you're signing Yanni Gourde to be what, Ben? The 4th line center? Because I know Glendening is a free agent. You have a lot of left-handed guys. That's the other thing. So if you use a center, that's great, but you need a right-handed guy to be able to take those draws, especially if you don't bring back Glendening, because outside of Bjorkstrand's not going to be taking the draws. Pointer's not going to be taking a ton of draws. Everybody else is pretty much left-handed. What do you make of like where Yanni's ideal position is going to be and what that means for as far as where else they need to kind of look when it comes to that forward group?
Sure. I think the big thing is with Yanni is, yes, you know, you'd like to have a, here's where you're probably going to start on night 1.
Mm-hmm.
But with Yanni, the nice thing is if you need a guy to slot in at left wing, Yanni Gourde can play left wing.
Right.
If you need a center, Yanni Gourde's a good center. Like, there's not many players in the NHL that you can put in either spot and say, we're going to be fine there. You might have a guy that can play there if necessary, but Yanni really can be a quality wing or center in the NHL. Now, I think when you look at the matchup this year, part of the reason I think we saw Yanni Gourde on that top line, obviously the injuries at the end of the year were brutal for the Lightning. That's no secret. But at the same time, you're playing a Florida Panthers team that is so aggressive, so physical. And what I think they wanted to do was add that pressure. And one of the things that maybe people don't realize about Yanni Gourde, because he's of that smaller stature and people always think like, yeah, he's physical, but physicality and I think pressure doesn't just have to be, I'm laying the body.
Right.
Yanni Gourde kind of has a sneaky speed about him.
Mm-hmm.
And when that guy's coming in on the forecheck, that's when you're forcing turnovers. And I think for the Lightning, maybe to start the playoffs, it was Gourde going on the forecheck. You're hoping maybe he forces some turnovers. And then you've got a Jake Gensel or a Nikita Kucherov with space. So it's hard to read into line combinations, and I think you know as well as I do. If you ask Coach John Cooper, what are my lines, you're going to get a different answer. You're going to get a different answer every single time, right? Mm-hmm. But I think it is a benefit that you have Yanni, who can play, if you want, different matchups. He can be maybe your second line left wing, second line again. Someone out there's laughing at what's my second line. He can be your third line center. He can be your fourth line, whatever you need him to play. And I think that's a big part of this because, yes, I think the understanding is, Yanni Gourde, we want you to add some of that depth offense. And I think people understand that it's probably not going to be with 30 goals a year. Right. But he's pretty good at distributing the puck. And a lot of that is because he gets in those greasy, dirty areas where it's hard to come out with the puck. And Yanni Gourde's one of those players who continuously goes in that corner, comes away with the puck, and you're like, I have no idea how he won that battle. But he did. And so I would guess this season you're going to see Yanni Gourde in a number of different places. Now, by the time the trade deadline comes, it's probably going to be more established of where he's going to be. But that's how every NHL team is these days. You're going to see mixing and matching. I'm sure there's moves still coming this summer. I think everybody would be shocked if there wasn't. Whatever that might be, whether that's trade signings, whatever, you just never know. But the fact that you've got this guy locked in now, and if you need him to play on your top line due to injuries, he's shown he can do that. If he needs to play for down the lineup, which I'm sure that's where everybody assumes he'll start the year, that's perfect because I'm telling you right now, the Toronto Maple Leafs, the Boston Bruins, all of these teams in the Atlantic Division that's become this really physical kind of grade A example of the Eastern Conference, they want a guy like Yanni Gourde. And I think when you look at the forward group, guys like Gage Gonsalves, who took a big step, and I thought in the playoffs especially, we saw some of Gage Gonsalves' best hockey.
Right, I agree.
So you mentioned the possibility of Geeky Gonsalves and Paulie.
That's going to feed families, I said.
Like that could be a pretty unbelievable. And you look at the size too, right? Like
that's why I like
what that group possibly could do. But the nice part about that is Connor Geeky and Gage Gonsalves are still so young. So let's say, Yanni Gourde starts as your fourth line center, your fourth line wing, whatever it might be. Yanni Gourde's still going to play probably 2+ minutes a night on the penalty kill. There's a good chance we see him on the second power play unit. They're going to find ways to use Yanni Gourde in a way that maybe he's the quote unquote fourth line center. But again, as Coop would love to hear, like he's going to play more than your traditional idea of maybe a fourth line player.
Yeah, you bring up a good point too about like these guys getting paid, and we see it all the time where Sam Bennett's going to get a boatload of money, whether it's with the Florida Panthers or anything else, and he's not going to be a 35, 40 goal scorer. Like the Rangers gave a boatload of money to a guy like Barclay Goodrow, and then they got rid of him, right? So you're looking for that grit, you're looking for that sandpaper, you're looking for that versatility, a guy that can play center, he can play wing, he's got that Stanley Cup pedigree. You mentioned about the possibility of making moves. I had Dave Randorf on last week. Do you think if the Lightning make a move, it's a small move, a tinker move, or do you think it's a big-time move? Because I don't know. Julian is a guy that is not afraid to make the big move. And we've seen it the last couple of years, whether it's not bringing back Stamkos, whether it's trading Sergachev. I look at this team and the fact that they already have, I just want to say 10, even if let's throw Gergensons in there, you kind of already have 11 forwards. I think that I wouldn't be surprised, man, if the Bolts make a, trade a staple of this team, whether it's forward or defense, and do that way. But I also wouldn't be surprised, on the other hand, if Julian goes, yeah, we're not going to make a big change like he didn't in 2019 after losing to Columbus, and just like a little tweak here, a little tweak there, and bring in his version of Maroon and Shattenkirk. You know what I mean? So if you had to pick one or the other, do you think it's a big move or a small move?
I would say right now it's probably more around the edges, mostly because we saw some guys play games this year for the Tampa Bay Lightning that I think could maybe push for roles internally. I mean, a guy like Max Crozier, there's a chance Max Crozier starts the year on the NHL squad for the first time. You look at a guy like Dylan Duke, comes up and makes maybe the best debut you can have, right? You score the goal. But, there were some other guys too throughout the course of this season that came up, and they weren't playing 20 minutes a night, obviously, with the roster that the Lightning have. But I think the nice thing is the Lightning have done such a great job over this past decade, basically, of finding guys, and not always in like those top 10 picks. They find ways to bring guys along and insert them when they're ready. It's not like we've seen some other NHL teams try to force the 19-year-old in there because they don't have a better option. And I think this summer is really going to be a discussion of how ready do we think some of these guys are. And if they're not ready, maybe then we go out and we add a player in free agency. But this team, the playoffs, I think, has kind of altered and maybe confused some people out there of what is this team. Statistically, you know how I get with my game notes and all the crazy stats, things like that. The data was really, really good for this team in the regular season. And I mean, like, better than it's been the past several years. The past 3-4 years, there were a lot of metrics, goals against, goals for, like, even special teams, like, took a big step this year. And I think it is stuff that you can really build on and finding, okay, if we can bring back the biggest part of this team, we should be just fine. And, people always say, well, the playoffs are what matters. Listen, man, how many teams do you think in 2020 were saying, if we could just beat the Tampa Bay Lightning, how far would we go in the playoffs?
Good
and
point.
teams right now are saying that about the Florida Panthers and the Edmonton Oilers. Look at the Dallas Stars, man. The Dallas Stars were a lot of people's Stanley Cup picks the last 2 seasons, and instead they've lost to the same team in the conference final. The Atlantic Division is so strong, especially this season. It was going to be a battle to get out of that first round. And there were a lot of people who said, the Tampa Bay Lightning were my pick or the Florida Panthers were my pick. But 90% of people were saying whoever does get out of that, that's my pick to go to the Stanley Cup final. And I think that you can't get too emotional and caught up in, well, yeah, we lost in the first round. We got to blow this thing up. There were a lot of really good things that happened this season for the Tampa Bay Lightning. And, Julian Breezeball is so good at the big picture of it. And he spoke at his end of year media saying, like, I'm quite proud of what this team did. He said, obviously, we all had a longer postseason in mind, but I don't think anybody here is hitting that panic mode of we need a big shakeup. Now, that being said, Julian Breezeball is not afraid to make a big move if one comes up that he thinks make his team better. I just also wonder around the NHL how active that possibility is going to be when everybody knows the cap is about to go up. I don't know how many big moves we're going to see if people maybe think that in a year they might have more flexibility than they do today.
Yeah, it's another good point. I like that. And it may help down the line.
For sure.
But right now, as far as like activity at the deadline, it's almost similar to when you don't see a lot of deals at the trade deadline because a lot of teams are in playoff contention. What do you make of the D core now? Because we're looking as we go forward. I think Moser's done a really good job of slotting in next to Victor Hedman. We know McDonough and Chernak, right? And then that third pairing, I think, do you think John Cooper goes back to a more traditional 12-6? Do you think he goes 11-7? Because Perbix is an unrestricted free agent. I don't know if he's going to come back. You have Darren Radish, but you mentioned Max Crozier. Like, I think Emil Lilleberg plays some of his best hockey with Max Crozier. Do you maybe look to move a guy like Darren Radish, which I think Ratty does some really, really good things. And, he's a guy that's, spent a lot of time in the minor leagues. Like he's a Lightning guy through and through. What do you make of the D pair, the D core going into the 2025-26 season?
I like the fact that you can look at this D core and say, we could lose a player off our NHL roster and probably still have 7 defensemen that could play NHL hockey today.
Right.
Just flat out, there aren't many NHL teams out there that would feel that comfortable with that idea. There's just not, because it is so much harder to play defense in the NHL than I think a lot of people understand. And I think maybe now more than ever, you see the foot speed more than anything else because the game has sped up so much. And it's not necessarily just the puck movement. It's guys are skating faster with the puck now than Connor McDavid's the first guy that's going to come to your mind, but there's a lot of really good players who skate fast with the puck, and I think you need to have guys who, A, are physical enough to hold that off, but can also keep up foot speed-wise. And that's not necessarily in a 1v1 foot race. I think the biggest thing is if I have the puck on my stick and I make a play in a split second and then either join the play or readjust and get back to make up for whatever might have just happened, I think the Lightning feel very confident in their D core, but I also think, again, if there's a chance to get better, you never know. You never know. And I think the other thing is you look at this year's free agency class, we'll call it, as far as top end talent, I think there's maybe less than people would see in a typical year that we've seen in the last couple of years, which you mentioned Sam Bennett is part of the reason that everybody's looking at Sam Bennett going, this guy could make money this year because it is maybe a lighter class at the top. However, the Lightning, I think, have some internal options, and I think we'll see that. But you just never know because, again, if there's a chance to make your team better, why not give it a try? And, this is a team that's never been afraid to make moves, to make ads, but they believe in the core here. And I think what Syracuse has done down there has been really impressive. And they're constantly bringing in guys. I think this last week we saw the Lightning sign a 7th-round goalie. How many goalies drafted in the 7th round get signed by their NHL club less than 12 months later? It doesn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know what we see on the defensive core side of things, but I do believe that there's belief in this group that they maybe didn't get enough credit this year because the 11-7 format worked really well for them because I think the nice part was everybody brought something a little bit different. Obviously, I think if you look at Taran Radish and Emil Lilleberg, they bring very different things.
Mm-hmm.
I would guess that next year maybe we see more of a 12-6, but then that also brings the question of what does the forward group look like? Because we just talked about there's 11 forward group or spots that are set. What's the 12th and 13th spot maybe look like? Because that could also decide what you do on the back end. And there's a lot more cohesion there than I think people acknowledge. But just the fact that the Lightning even have that option, there's not many teams in the NHL that can say on any given night, we're going 11-7 or we're going 12-6. So I think they'd like to have that flexibility, but I honestly don't know if there's been a decision yet on we want to go back to 12-6 or we're sticking with 11-7. I think there's a lot yet to happen there.
Yeah, and I look at a guy like Jack Finley too. Like, what does he bring to the table? Because he's got some size as well. That's something that this team could certainly use. The whole Isaac Howard situation is just sad to me. Like, I really was looking forward, and I just wonder would things have been different, right? For the Lightning in the playoffs, if you had a guy like Isaac Howard, knowing that Hobie Baker and now Julian's, and I asked him the question in the exit interviews, and surprised the way it all went down. Do you think that the Lightning kind of let it go and work its way all the way down and then get a compensatory pick for it, or do you think they make a move? And if that's what you think, NHL draft around there, what do you think?
I think it's tough to say, but I don't think anybody saw all of this unfolding the way it did, right? And obviously, anytime you draft a player, you're hoping eventually it ends with an NHL contract. As of right now, like Julian said, it doesn't look like it's headed there as of his exit interview, but things can change in the NHL. And you never know. Like, there's been so many times where players say, I don't want to sign with that team. And then all of a sudden, 6 months later, something changes and they sign.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, there's only so many spots and opportunities in the NHL. And then you add in how many of those opportunities will allow you to be competitive and in the playoffs right off the jump in your first NHL experience. The Lightning have both of those things. Now, again, it's been talked about a lot, and I think it is unfortunate. And I know were fans that were really excited. I mean, the kid just won Hobie Baker, right? Yeah. The good news is there's no pressure on anybody to make a decision here. If you want to sit back and take that pick, I don't know why you wouldn't be okay with that. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, if there's a team out there that looks at Isaac Howard and says, hey, I like it, and they want to trade for him, you never know. But I think that's the biggest. There's no pressure. There's no timeline here. I think you just got to let things sit for a little bit. And he had a great season. The Lightning think they had a great season. I think they had a great season. And at this point, there's just not a timeline on it. And I think it'd be different if his rights were set to expire in, a month. Mm-hmm. That's just not the situation right now. And I think everybody's okay to just let this one breathe.
Ben, before I get you out of here, man, just let's put a bow on the entire season for you. What was it like, to be able to be here in the Tampa Bay area and to be able to kind of go through, an entire season doing some traveling with the team? What was that like for you when you sit back and kind of look at the entire season as a whole?
Yeah, it's been surreal, man. It's really been a dream come true for me. And like I said, I'm already amped up for season 2. I think like many people, we're hoping for a little bit of a longer postseason experience, but this is the NHL, man. And to be here, whether it's for this upcoming training camp and seeing what that's all like for the first time, I'm super excited for that. There's lots of stuff in the works here, and hoping to get a little bit better every day, but it's been an absolute dream. I think even I maybe underestimated just how crazy the fandom was here, and just how well run this organization is. And blessed to be a part of it, and I really appreciate the fact that this is what I get to do every day for work. So if you'd have told me at 15 I was going to be sitting in an NHL arena on a Tuesday at 12 o'clock, I probably would have told you were full of it. So it's a blessing, and I'm just so happy to be here. I will say I'd be so cool if we didn't have any of those crazy hurricanes this year. I'm sure there's some on the way, but I have the experience now with that too. So we'll see how that goes this year. But it truly has been a joy, and hoping for another long run this year. We'll see.
Any trips planned for the summer?
Yeah, actually headed back to Wisconsin, which
Nice.
will be great. You know, this Florida heat's no joke, man.
Yeah, buddy.
And every time I say that, somebody looks at me like it's June, man. You have no idea what you're talking about. Just wait, it's coming. You know, so it'll be nice to head back to Wisconsin for a little bit and see some buddies. Got a good buddy of mine's getting married here this fall, so it'll be a blast. We're doing that, and other than that, really just enjoying the slow part of the season. Excited for when it amps up again. So taking a second to breathe and getting ready for the sprint.
Good for you, man. The beat writer, manager of media relations for our Tampa Bay Lightning, Benjamin Pierce. Ben, we're so glad that you're here in the Tampa Bay area, man. You definitely make our entire media contingent better by being a part of it. It's been a blast, man. So enjoy your summer, and I'm sure we'll touch base again soon. And I'll see you at the rink, my friend. Thank you so much for your time today.
Sounds good, man. Take care.
You got it, buddy. The great Ben Pierce there for the Tampa Bay Lightning. What a great job he did in year one with the Bolts. That's what the Lightning do, man. The Bolts, they bring in the right people, they bring in good people, and it's not just the players, right? It's, people ask me about, Ben and Gabby Shirley and Breezeman and Chris Cran and all these people. Like, these are salt of the earth type people. They really are, man. And it's no mistake why the Lightning are one of the most successful franchises. And it's not just about the guys on the ice, right? I mean, we talked to Nigel Kerwin last week. Like, it's great. It's great to be a part of. And it sucks when it's over. It really is. There's such it's like a dark day. It takes a little while. And Eric Erlinson, he always, he's another guy, obviously. He is a dude that pretty much every year talks about how tough it is, after the season is over, and just that feeling of like emptiness. And it's real, man. It's real for the players. It's real for the coaches, and it's real for the media. Like, as much as you don't want to get invested, or maybe, we're not fans at the end of the day, right? Like, you have to be able to kind of give yourself that space. But you get so caught up in everything. You get so caught up in the travel. You get so caught up in the covering these teams, and your life revolving around, there's a Lightning game tonight. There's a Lightning game tonight. Going on the road and covering and doing all these different things. Like, it's a blast. It really is. Definitely really, really cool. All right. So today they're doing the cut and color to fund the cure today for our Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This is something that they do every year to help raise money for a fantastic cause, and to look at, I got to show you Baker Mayfield. Shout out to our friends at Pewter Report. Check this out. Here we go. Boom. Look at this. Baker Mayfield. Getting died. How cool, man. Look at those kids. Baker's like, what am I doing? Why did I get myself into this? And he's like, cover your face, Baker. Cover your face. That's so cool, man. Obviously, raising money for the pediatric cancer. And there's so many great causes here in the Tampa Bay area. It hurts, man. It hurts to think about kids that have to go through that, and their parents. And that's a big reason why I'm part of the Ryan Callahan Foundation and doing whatever I can to help, because you just see these stories and what these families go through. It's just gut-wrenching, man. It's so terrible. And it's not just the coaches. I mean, it's not just the players. It's not just the kids. It's not just the parents. It's the families, the brothers and sisters. Everybody's affected. And man, I saw this. There was a video at the Ryan Callahan Foundation event this year about one of these little kids that had cancer, and his immune system was challenged, and His brother and sister, when they came home from school, every single day had to go into the garage. They had to take off all their clothes. They had to Lysol their clothes. They had to immediately go take a shower. Like, oh my God, can you imagine that? It's just such an adaptation for your entire family. It's rough, man. It is so freaking rough. And you feel for parents and families that have to deal with that. Oh, but like Dolan said, love Baker more and more every day. Okay, so if you're a member of Rays Nation, if you're a Rays fan, I ask you this question. Would you be okay if the Rays signed Junior Caminero to a long-term deal? Now, I know just by saying that, some people out there are going to be like, It's not an instant yes, is it? Right now, he's batting .262. He's got 13 home runs, 37 runs batted in, 30 runs scored. The average a tick up from last year, and this is a kid that's 21 years old. He's one of the faces of the franchise, and he's the co-player of the week in the American League. I know that there is that thought of, let's get out in front of this. Let's do whatever we can to keep this guy here for a long term. But what do you pay him? Do you pay him that type of deal? And we've seen this a lot for the Atlanta Braves, and we've seen it with the Rays when they try to do it with a certain shortstop who shall not be named. Well, I'll name him in a second. But you try to get out in front of it, knowing that this guy, if Junior Caminero ends up being the guy, I mean, he could be a $400, $500, $600 million player, right? But if you sign him now, can you get him towards the 1, 2, 3? Keep him in that ballpark. You could, but you also have to be cognizant of the deal that the Rays signed with Wander Franco. And for this guy, even now, like you just put it up, I just put it on Google, Rays sign Wander Franco. And even though I put that in there, the thing that comes up is the trial that's going on right now in the Dominican Republic, where he's facing sexual abuse and human trafficking charges. They had the introductory statements yesterday. They're going to reconvene on Thursday. He says that he just wants justice. Okay, we'll see. But I don't think you could sit here, and if you're the Tampa Bay Rays, be okay with giving a guy like Junior Caminero a long-term deal. Would you be okay with that? If you were a Rays fan, would you be comfortable with that? And I'm not talking about just like the money part, because at the end of the day, it's not your money. It's not my money. What do I care? But there's got to be some buyer beware because of what happened with Wander. So people on the internet the last couple of days have been talking about Junior Caminero, sign him now, sign him to a long-term deal. Oof. I have my hesitations about that. Remember, the Rays signed Wander Franco to an 11-year, $182 million contract. And now the only reason Wander is in the news is because of his trial down in the Dominican Republic. I don't know if that's a smart move for the Tampa Bay Rays to give out another contract to a young player who you just don't really know. You don't know what's going to happen on the field. You certainly don't know what's going to happen off the field. And it doesn't mean that Junior Caminero is going to get into the type of trouble that we have seen Wander Franco get into. But again, for a team that doesn't spend a whole hell of a lot of money, that don't give out these exorbitant long-term contracts, and when they do, it bites them in the ass, like we saw with Wander, I don't think that's feasible. And also with the future of the club, like where are they going to be playing in 4 or 5 years? Does anybody really know? Are they going to be here in the Tampa Bay area? I don't know. There just seems to be a lot more cons than pros when you're having this discussion. I understand trying to lock the guy up early, trying to get the guy to sign something where he's going to stay here for a while, and you get him. And if everything works out well, you're going to look back on the deal in 4, 5, 6, 7 years and go, wow, that was a huge underpay. But man, like this team is still feeling the after effects. And of course, I want to hear from you. Would you be okay? Here's the link. It's in the chat. There you go. There's the link in the chat. Go into the chat, click on the link. You can join me via phone or laptop, and we can have this discussion about Junior Caminero. Would you be okay with the Rays signing Junior Caminero to a long-term deal? Dave Terry saying, still butthurt from Wander. You're not the only one, buddy. A lot of people still very upset. Might use a different term, but yeah, I understand what you're saying. Carlos, patience with Junior. Let's wait a season or two. Yeah, okay. Benny said, I'm faxing you. Sign Junior as soon as possible. I don't know, man. I don't know. And when you look at this team going forward, you need his contributions. Don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong at all. I get it. And especially when you look at the Rays the last couple of nights where 2 of the 3 last games, they scored either 1 or 0 runs. They're coming back tonight to play the Texas Rangers at home, and they're hoping offensively they're able to be kind of like the other team, right? To score 10-plus runs like we saw in the 2 wins in the series rather than the 2 losses. Tonight, the Rays back in action there at Steinbrenner Field. 7:35 first pitch. Tyler Mahle on the mound for the Texas Rangers. 5-2 with a 1.64 ERA. He has been damn good for the Rangers so far this year. A 105 whip. And Drew Rasmussen, that whip of .93. He has been balling. 4-4 with a 2.33 ERA. Love the way Drew Rasmussen is throwing the ball. But, I mean, and this is what a lot of people are saying. Mario, 2 to 3 years. David Terry, ouch. Dolan, I'm okay with giving Junior a raise. Not long-term, but seeing a few seasons, that may be a long-term deal. Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's rough. It's rough. I would give him a raise too, but I don't know about the long-term deal. If you're going to give him kind of a bridge deal, and we see that in hockey sometimes, give the kid a bridge deal, see if he can perform at that level. Then maybe after 2 or 3 years, you feel a lot better about giving the 24-year-old guy a deal like that rather than the 21-year-old guy a deal like that. But there's just something about it. There's just something about that idea of giving a kid that young a deal like that. Ugh, it's just, I don't know, man. I can't do it. I could not do that. And it's because you're the Rays. Listen, if you're the Yankees, you're another one of these bigger market teams where if you sign a kid to a deal like this and you're like, well, it doesn't work out, then okay. But the Rays have to be, so careful with what they do with their money. They can't afford to make these mistakes. That's another thing that goes into this. And I knew that as much as the Rays, when you're dealing with this Wander Franco deal, the aftermath of that, as much as you look at the situation and go, it sucks that he's not like on the field for the team and, they gave him this deal and it didn't work out. Well, there's also the after effects of, right? Yes, you may be cautious and you may not like want to give another big term contract. I think it hurts the smaller term deals too. It hurts those smaller deals when you're like, all right, I got Hassan Kim and who else? You're not splashing for another bat. You're not going out and getting another big time starter, right? Like, so that's happened. That's happened with the Rays. It's tough enough for them to be able to spend money, but this type of deal for Wander Franco, it's not good. It's not good. I hope we get past this at some point with the Rays where they're not into a situation where, hey, it doesn't work out and it just cripples the franchise. One day I hope that it happens for the Rays because the fan base deserves better. You really do. You deserve a team that's going to be able to go out there and to be able to construct your roster in a way where you can go out there and you can make some mistakes and it doesn't cripple you. It doesn't have you in a situation where like, oh, wow, I can't pay a guy for 3 or 4 years. Like, you don't want that. So fingers crossed, all fingers crossed toes crossed that the Rays are going to get back to their winning ways tonight against Texas. But as far as a long-term deal for Junior Caminero with this team, I just don't think it's in the cards. I just don't think that it's going to happen. Sorry, Junior. We'd love to have you here, but I just don't see it. I just don't see how that works out. All right, over at One Buccaneer Place today, outside of the second day of mandatory minicamp, we see that, and I just mentioned it, you see these guys doing the cut for the cure, and you see them being around. I just saw that Tristan Wirfs was over there, and this is a guy that wasn't even practicing, but the fact that he's there, I love that. I love that there just seems to be in importance. There seems to be a priority. There just seems to be a standard with this team. Like they care. They care about the community. They care about giving back. And there's so many different people that miss the mark. There's so many players and athletes and teams, no matter what they do, they're tone deaf, and it just doesn't work out well. And I hate to say it, but there's a lot of people out there that look at the Rays that do that. And I'm sure in the past that the Bucks didn't do everything perfect with Hugh Culverhouse and the other team that the Glazers own in Manchester United. That's how they're looked at. Everything they do is wrong. There's nothing that they can do to get themselves back in the good graces with the supporters there in Manchester. I get that. But you get a situation like this where you have people involved and you built that culture. The Bucks are just they're top notch. They're top notch. And we also heard some of the guys speak after camp today and after the cut for the cure. So let's hear from some of them right now. And we'll start with, I thought I had one right here. Give me 1 second. I'm going to pull it up. All right, we're going to go with our guy, Greg Allman, because, of course, he got great videos as always. And this is Antoine Winfield Jr. Grateful to be healthy and said injuries, unfortunately, are a part of the game. Here's what Antoine Winfield Jr. had to say after voluntary OTAs over there at One Buccaneer Place.
But I'm excited for this year 6. Yeah, it's football. That's part of the game. Injuries happen, but I'm excited for this year 6 already. It's flying by. I feel like I still just got here, so I'm excited for this year. Yeah, it's football. That's part of the game.
There you go, Antoine Winfield Jr. His 2 cents. I mean, this is a kid that he's always got a smile on his face. He's always so excited to be there, and he's just a pure leader. This is a guy that just does whatever it takes to win, and you just love what his disposition is. You love how he goes over everything with his dad. He wants to win. He wants to be so good. I anticipate a big bounce back year for him. Servassier Dennis also spoke today. When you look at a guy like Voss, who said this? I forgot who said it, but somebody made them mention that one of the biggest votes, it might have been Greg, one of the biggest votes of confidence is when they ignore your position. And that's exactly where we're at with Servassier Dennis. He's going to be that guy that is going to be playing next to Levante David. Here's what Voss had to say at One Buck today.
For sure. Everything is definitely slowed down for me. It's fun just being out here, telling guys where to be, line up, things like that. And, just being around other guys, just competing is fun. So I'm just excited to be where I am.
Sorry, I didn't unmute my mic. Sorry. Thanks, Ren. Thanks, Jake. I look at this team, and I don't necessarily know if I buy Todd Bowles saying, like, I'm okay with the inside linebacker position. I'm okay with the depth there. I don't know. I don't know about that. Are you guys? Are you okay with the inside linebacker position? I'm not. You need as many guys as humanly possible for spots like that. And you saw it with the secondary. We know after watching last year, guys like, Hayes playing and, some of these guys that really are just special teams guys after getting all of that time last year because of, injuries to Zion and injuries to Jamel Dean and right, injuries to Jordan Whitehead. Like, you need to be able to replace those guys. Yeah, it's nice to say that you have the that next man up mentality, but you got to have talent there. That's why last year at the trade deadline, and I know how the NFL is when it comes to the trade deadline, and you're not moving a bunch of guys, but I wanted Robert Spillane in a big way. I need a tackling machine at that inside linebacker position. There's so much talk about what a guy like Servassier Dennis can do as far as like being able to, defend the passer over the middle of the field. I get that. And that's what you want to do, but you got to be able to tackle. You got to be able to go sideline to sideline. You got to think about what the Buccaneers thought when they had a guy like Devin White. And I'm not talking about where it went wrong. I'm not talking about all the negativity. I'm talking about the positive. When Devin White was really good, what was he doing for this team? He was able to go sideline to sideline. He was able to do a little bit of everything. He was the ability to rush the passer, right? He was never great at defending the pass, but he gave effort. He gave it all he had. So that's a little different there. And I know, and Ren brings up a good point. I know a lot of people are saying it. David can only go forward now. Most guys at that spot, I mean, you don't see a bunch of older linebackers. That's generally what happens. Their ability to backpedal, their ability to change directions, their ability to be able to go back on the football and to be able to knock a ball away, that's not your strength. It really isn't. But for Levante, do you have faith that he is a guy that can use some of that veteran guile, use some of that intelligence to be able to make up for some of his physical shortcomings? I think you count on that for every athlete as he gets older when you go to the mid-30s and late 30s and early 40s. But that's how they continue to stay in the game, right? I mean, you saw it with Tom. Tom's the greatest example. It's going to be up to Todd Bowles and what he's deciding. It's going to be up to, I guess Todd Bowles and just looking at the inside linebacker position of like, can you address it once the season starts? Sure. But I really hope that I just lauded Todd Bowles about this, the open-mindedness, right? I really hope that the open-mindedness of certain situations when it comes to the Buccaneers, it trickles into the inside linebacker situation. Get to a situation where you look at it and go, hey, this isn't working. This isn't working. What can we do to get this linebacker position up to snuff? Because you used multiple draft picks. You used free agent money on your secondary, which really struggled. Your pass rush really struggled. So inside linebacker, I really hope that's not the death knell of this team because the Buccaneers deserve better. They sure do, especially the offense, how well that they played the last couple of years. The defense has to step up, and this is Todd Bowles' thing. He's a defensive guy. Like, you got to be able to come out here and do your thing. And these guys have to play much better. You have to be able to stop the run. You have to be able to just be tougher at the point of contact. You need to be better at the line of scrimmage. Win the battles in the trenches. You're doing a great job offensively. Now defensively. I don't think people realize this, maybe outside of Tampa Bay. But your offense was badass last year. If your defense, with all the resources that you're pouring into it, can just be just a smidge better, think about how far this team can go. And you look at all these different things, and Greg and I spoke about this last week, where like the fan graphs and all these stupid ass numbers, and I've done this simulation, and I've done. Just show me what the hell's going on the field. Stop with this all the analytic stuff all the time. Oh my gosh. You can use it to make your argument, but your only argument is the analytics. Like, that's not the way it goes. It's not going to work out for you. You have to trust your eyes. You have to trust your stomach. When I watch this Buccaneers team and I look at how people are judging them around the country, I think you're freaking nuts for overlooking this team. And I posed the question, and again, I want to answer from you guys. Here's the link in the chat. The Buccaneers are the blank best team in the NFC. Where do they rank? Are they, I don't think anybody can say that they're 1 because of Philadelphia. Are they 2, 3, 4? And the reason why I bring this up is because Frank Ragnow, retiring at 29 years old, this was a guy that was the focal point of that offensive, that offensive line in the middle. Obviously, we know how good Penei Sewell is, former first-round pick. And Penei Sewell and Tristan Wirfs, they're going to be battling for many years when it comes to the discussion of who's the best offensive lineman, the Protector of the Year award. I wouldn't be surprised if both those guys won it multiple times. But there it is right there. There's the link in the chat. Feel free to click on it. The Buccaneers are the blank best team in the NFC. And I think for my money, I'm just going through all the teams. NFC East, Philly, Washington. I think the Bucs are better than the Washington Commanders, Washington football team, whatever the hell you want to be called. Out of the teams in the North, I like the Bucs better than Detroit in the 2025 season. Ragnow's injured. Ragnow's retiring. You're losing both of your coordinators. I don't trust any teams in the South, nor the teams in the West. Rams, Seahawks, Niners, we spoke about them. I don't know, man. Cardinals, no way. I think the Buccaneers are the second best team in the NFC. I really do. I think that they are a team that's only going to get better. I think their offense is already a top 5 team in the league. When you look at it defensively, with all of the resources that they brought in, they needed a pass rush. They needed numbers in the secondary. They went out and got Hassan Reddick. They went out and drafted, David Walker. They drafted guys like Benjamin Morrison and Jacob Parrish to go with Jamel Dean and Zion McCollum, Dykey Smith in year 2. There's a lot of other question marks when it comes to teams around the league. And I just don't think that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have a ton of question marks. What is their biggest question mark going into the season? It's not the offensive line. It's not the quarterback position. It's not Bucky Irving at the running back spot. They have numbers now at the wide receiver spot. It's got to be defensively, but where? Hey, they don't rush the passer all that well. Okay, you went out and got a guy like Hassan Reddick. Take all the off-the-field stuff off the table. Don't even talk about it. This is a guy that if he plays, this guy's going to be a factor, and he's going to get 10 sacks this season. You have more guys that you can rotate in. The youth, I think Kalijah Cansey being healthy going into the season helps with a guy like Vita Vea. That you can, Levante David can go out there and find a way to rush the passer and be intelligent there. And whether it's corner blitzes, whether it's the safeties getting home, I think the Buccaneers are in a good spot to go deep into the playoffs once again. And right now, I do have them as the second best team in the NFC. And you look at Detroit, and I know who they have with Jared Goff. But the Buccaneers have had some success against Goff and the Lions. They run the football with Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. Great. But if you can stop them, then what? Right? I think losing both of their coordinators is huge. We saw how that impacted the Philadelphia Eagles a couple of years ago with Nick Sirianni. You lose Jonathan Gannon, you lose Shane Steichen, and it took them a while to kind of realize what their team was all about. How do you find that identity once again? Because what Detroit is going to do is they're going to go into the season, and they're going to try to say, hey, we've been good for a long time. This is what our staple is. This is what our identity is. Let's see if we have it. Instead of building it, right? Instead of building it in a way where it can work. I don't know. I don't know if that's going to work out for the Detroit Lions. And listen, to be fair, when you have Dan Campbell and you have a lot of good players on that team, I understand. I know that I won't be the first person that's going to say it. Watch, you're going to hear this a lot over the next couple of weeks and the next couple of months. People are going to put 2 and 2 together. They're going to talk about Ragnow retiring. They're going to talk about both coordinators leaving. They're going to talk about how tough their road trip or their road schedule is. A lot of people are going to look at the Detroit Lions like they're going to be ripe for the picking in the 2025 season. We'll see. I'm one of those people that believe that it's going to happen. I think they'll finish the season maybe 9-8 or 8-9. They're too good to be a 5-win team. But 9-8, 10-7, barely squeaking into the playoffs or just missing, that's where I have Detroit going forward. And of course, we'll give our predictions as we get closer to see where everything's going to fall, because I'm just really excited about the Bucs. I'm excited about what the Rays have in store tonight as they take on the Texas Rangers at 7:35. Again, Tyler Mahle against Drew Rasmussen. That's going to be a good one as well. UT trying to keep their season alive with a big game tonight at 6 o'clock against UT. Tyler, please, if you can, get out there and support Pete. I was saying Peter Report. Go out there and support our guys. It's important, man. Support all of our Tampa people. And I just saw the thing that threw me off is there was a video that Peter Report just posted of Mark Cook getting his haircut. 2016, man. Damn. Freaking sucks. Gone too soon. Our guy, Mark Cook and Peter Report. And I know the young lady that cut his hair, they kept in contact after that, obviously dealing with pediatric cancer. It's awfully sad. Awfully sad. No family should have to go through that. No doubt about it. R.I.P. Mark Cook. We miss you every day, my friends. I'll never forget being there at the Super Bowl at Raymond James Stadium and just like looking at the confetti and looking at just taking it in, how cool it was that, we're in the middle of a pandemic and nothing outdoors, right? And you're sitting there, and I was in the auxiliary press box outside, which was way better than being up in the press box. And I'm there, and I'm looking around like, this is great. And then I look down the aisle, and who do I see? I see a man looking at the sky like this with a tear going down his face, rather. And it was Mark Cook. And this is a guy that would always bust my chops for my shoes that I would wear. And I usually hate New Yorkers, but some reason I love you. We had a very special bond. I talked to Mark less than 24 hours before we lost him. You're just stuck there. You're stuck there looking at your phone. You're stuck there looking like, what is he gonna? He'll be okay. He'll text me later on that he was just kidding. It's heartbreaking. It really is. We miss you, Mark. We miss you every day, my friend. Really, really do. I'm just glad that we were able to see Mark Cook enjoy that Super Bowl before we lost him. But again, gone far too soon, way too soon. We miss you, Mark Cook, no doubt about it. All right, a big thank you to Ben Pierce for joining us on the program today. Really good show, a little bit of a quick hitter. Tomorrow, same thing. We're going to have Bailey Adams, the fresh shaven Bailey is going to join us on the show. Peter Report, he had a discussion yesterday with Scott Reynolds and Todd Bowles, so we'll chat with him about that. Also, he got his haircut today as part of his cut and color for the cure. What went into him doing that? Why the hell would you do that to yourself, my friend? But you did. Good for you. So Bailey's going to join us on the program. We'll also have some other irons in the fire as well. Friday, Kavika Mitchell's going to join us. USF, soon to be USF Hall of Famer. He'll join us, and also Super Bowl champion as well. Can't wait to speak to Kavika Mitchell. All right. Follow me on all social media platforms, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, TikTok. I am everywhere. Like and subscribe on YouTube as well. We can't do this without you guys. I can't stress to you how much love that I have for everybody that supported me since I started doing this. Look at Lady Evil, the $5 contribution. Thank you so much, Lady Evil. You are the best. You need to call in one day. We want to see and talk to you just like David Terry did. Every little bit helps, guys. So if you see me anywhere, if you see any of my videos, please share them, like them. Every little bit helps. We're going to continue rolling with this podcast. It's getting bigger and bigger. Just think, last November, I had 38 subscribers on YouTube. Now over 1,400. We're getting closer to 1,500. Please tell your friends, tell your family members, tell your dentist, tell your doctor to support us right here on the Jay Recher podcast. All right. Everybody have a great day. Go UT at 6 o'clock today. Bring it home, Spartans. We love you guys, and we'll see you guys tomorrow right here on the Jay Recher podcast.